Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Good
How's
morning,
everyone
Wade.
doing?
Good morning.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Good
Good
day.
morning, Wade.
Afternoon here. Uh, Hey, Bob, how are you?
Doing okay.
Welcome. Emily, hi.
Hi. Good morning. Mine is morning because I'm in California.
California. Okay, we kind of got an even split here.
I'm going to take your 1 o'clock class also.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Greta, how are you?
Hi. Good afternoon.
Cheryl, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, Cheryl.
I'm in Michigan.
You're in Michigan, so it's what, 1 o'clock there?
2.
2 o'clock. Okay, you're same as me. All right.
Michigan.
Somebody's on his iPad 4.
That might be me, Marvis. I'm in
Oh.
Alpharetta, Georgia.
Hey, Marvis. Okay, you've changed yourself over. Okay, great. Welcome, Marvis. And okay, then somebody's on his iPhone.
Yes, that's me.
Want me to
Hello.
rename you?
Sure.
What's your first name?
Mary.
Okay, Mary.
Thank
All right.
you.
That'll only hold for the class. You can change it in Zoom if you want it changed permanently, but that'll take care of you for today.
Wonderful. Quick question for you. Since I'm on
Sure.
my iPhone, I have a computer. Do I need to set that up to work with this too?
Yeah, you can do it either way. You can just watch and listen on your iPhone and then follow along on your computer with what I'm doing, or you can do it all from your computer. So whichever way.
Thank you. Yeah, I
it's
don't.
easier for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You
I
probably want to
think
be
that's
following
what I
along on
wanted
your
to do.
computer.
That would
Yeah,
be that. Yeah.
I
I'm new
thought
to
it would
this.
be easier than to go back and forth. So I'm going to be on my laptop and the iPad at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of people do it that way. That's
Okay.
whatever works for you, but that's fairly common. Let's see, who else have we got here? Greg, you there? Greg from North Carolina? Yes. How about Brenda?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay. All right. Great. Welcome, Brenda. And there's Susan. And if you can hear me, just unmute and say hi, because I want to make sure everybody can unmute and that they're.
Hi.
Hey, Susan. Make sure their audio is working so that when you have questions in class, I can hear you. Carla, you there? Hear from Carla. How about Pat?
Hi.
Oh, there's Pat. Okay, hi. How you doing?
Good.
All right, and Doreen.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. Welcome. DJ. See Greg. Greg, are you there? Can you unmute and say hi if you are?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right.
I got you.
You're where in North Carolina are you?
I'm near Chapel Hill in a little town called Pittsboro.
Oh yeah, I used to live in Pittsboro. I'm in Southport.
Oh, really? A
Yeah,
small world then.
It is. Okay. Let's see. Did I miss anyone that's here already? Anybody I didn't call your name yet?
I'm here, Linda Green.
Linda Green. Okay.
First time, yep.
Oh, it was your first time? Oh, great.
Yes.
Welcome. And I got another Linda here. So we have Linda Mans and Linda Green both. Okay. Welcome to both of you. I'm always glad to see new people come in. Hope you enjoy the class and sign up for a lot more classes. Okay. Let's see who else is here. Oh, anyone that's not showing their picture, you can turn your camera on down in the bottom left if you're on a laptop, or most of the computers. It's if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, it may be in the upper part. You don't have to turn your camera on; it's not required, but we'd like to see you if you don't mind turning it on. And certainly make sure you can unmute yourself so that I can hear you when we're doing the class, because we'll be muting during the class. I see Marge has joined us. Hey, Marge.
Hi
Say
there.
hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marge from GetSetup Learners Support Group. And I'm here in case you have any questions about Zoom or anything else I can help you with. I can't reorganize your Windows computer, but we have a class for that.
Oh, thanks, Marge.
You're welcome. Thank
Thanks,
you, Wade.
Mark.
You're welcome.
All righty. So we usually take the first 5 minutes or so to just do meet and greet and give people a chance to get their technology working. And we are at that point. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Wade Yarbrough, and I'll be the guide for this session on Google Sheets Basics. Few housekeeping issues to go over before we get started in the class. The session is being recorded. That is primarily for internal quality control purposes, but any participant can request a copy of that recording, and I'll show you how to do that at the end of class. Also, there's no marketing or other financial relationships between GetSetup and Google. We're purely the trainers, and all of our revenue comes from our training activities.
Yay.
I'm going to be muting everybody. We're all at home, things happen. So but make sure you can know how to unmute. And when you have a question, just go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question. If you remember, remute after you're finished your question. But if we start picking up background noise, I will mute again. So always check and see if you're muted before you ask a question. And we definitely want to hear your questions. And I'm also going to pull a copy of the chat over. And if you're having trouble with your microphone, you can use the chat to ask your question or make your comments. If your microphone is working, please just go ahead and ask a question. You don't need to raise your hand. Just go ahead and unmute and ask your question, because I may be looking in the opposite direction and not see your hand raised. But feel free to just open up and ask. But if you're having trouble with your mic, go ahead and put that in the chat. I have that open now where I can see it. I've got a quick poll here I'm going to launch. You could fill that out, only 2 clicks, and it is anonymous, but just kind of get a little idea of what everybody's experience level is with Google and Excel. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and move into the agenda. So the objectives for the class are that after taking the class, you'll know how Google Sheets compares to Microsoft Excel. One of the assumptions is that most people have at least a passing familiarity with Excel, and we'll draw upon that knowledge you have about Excel. If you don't have any experience with Excel, that's not a problem. The class will start from scratch, so you don't need any prior Excel experience. But if you work with it, I'll kind of draw some comparisons for you. You'll know how to create a new worksheet or open existing worksheets. You know how to copy and format information. More importantly, you know how to use formulas and functions. That's really the heart and soul of a spreadsheet. And also how to import an Excel spreadsheet into Google Sheets and go the other way around. Take a Google Sheet and export it into Excel format. Call the order for the day, but I think we can get it done. Let's see, everybody have a chance to get their poll done? And let me go ahead and end the poll if everybody's finished. And I'll share the results quickly just so you can see what the results are. So it looks like everybody has a Google account. One person's not quite sure. All right, that's good. We'll kind of go through that anyway. And kind of assume most people have, about half people have some experience with Excel, some people not. So, okay, that works fine. I'm gonna put this over here for later, but I don't need that anymore. Just as much a curiosity as anything. So let's start. How does Sheets differ from Excel? For those of you that know about Excel, or if you want to know about Excel, if you're still comparing the two. And basically, Google Sheets and Excel do the same thing. They're from different companies, so they differ in some ways. They're familiar, similar in a lot more ways. Google Sheets is a browser-based product, which means it runs on a browser like where I am right now. Whereas Excel is a desktop program, so you have to download the program and install it on each device. With Google, there's nothing to install for the browser version. Excel runs on Windows or Mac computers. Excel has more functions and features than Sheets does. It's been around for a long time. It's been king of the hill for a long time, so they've developed lots of features and functions, but most of them are things you don't really need for your typical personal usage. I haven't bumped into anything in Google Sheets that I needed that wasn't there. Excel can handle bigger data sheets than Google Sheets does. With Excel, you can have 1 million rows and 16,000 columns. That is huge. I don't know why anyone except a big corporation would need that. Sheets, you can get 50,000 rows and 40 columns. That's more than enough for most people. Sheets is free, which is nice. That's my favorite price. The full Excel program requires the purchase of Microsoft 365, which starts at $70 a year. Now, for that $70, you get more than Excel. You get Word, you get Excel, you get PowerPoint, you get Outlook, as well as a terabyte of data for OneDrive. So you get a lot for the $70, but Sheets is free. So that's another comparison. So how do you get access to Google Sheets? First, you have to have a Google account. And I think everybody pretty much thinks they've got a Google account. I'll show you how to get one if you don't. Then you just need to launch the browser to get to Google Sheets. So from any browser, you go to google.com and launch using the 9-dot app. I'll show you how to do that. Now you can download and install Google Sheets as an app on your smartphone or tablet. Just go to your respective app store and download Google Sheets and then open it and log in. It does look and work different as an app. Today, we're going to be using the browser version. It has more functionality than the app version does. So if you're trying to follow along, it's better to be on a browser. If you're on a tablet, you can launch the browser on the tablet and get to the browser-based version from the tablet. All right, so let's open Google. I'm going to move this over out of the way, and I'm going to launch my browser, which is already open to Google. But to start with, you would go to www.google.com. If you don't have a Google account, there'll be an option down here to sign up for an account. If you have an account, then you would just sign in. Once you're signed in, you'll look like mine does, where you'll have your picture up here. If you've set a picture, it'll have your initials. If you don't have a picture, to show that you're logged in. You can have more than one Google account. I'm logged in under 2 right now. I've got my personal account and my work account. I can flip back and forth between the 2 of them. Each one has its own Google Sheets account. This is the 9-dot box. I was talking about the 9-dot icon. If you click that, it shows you all the apps available as part of your free Google account. Lots and lots of stuff here that you can play with and look at later. We're going to zero in on Sheets since that's the topic of the day. So I just click Sheets and Google Sheets is now loaded. Questions about anything so far? I went over that pretty quickly. That's mostly background information.
I had a question. This is Marvis. I never used Google Sheets, but when I opened this up, I saw several spreadsheets already there that I had done in Excel. So I was just wondering, how did they get over there?
You had to have imported them at some point, or somebody on your account did. They won't show up without bringing them into Google Sheets. Works on Google Drive, so they had to get into Google Drive somehow.
Okay, I think I received them from someone who uses Google.
Yeah, maybe in an attachment in an email that you opened.
Yeah,
that would have put it in there. Yep. That
okay.
would do it.
All right. Thank you.
And again, someone's asking if they have a Gmail account. If you have a Gmail account, you've got a Google account. So you can't get Gmail without Google. So, which means you can also, if you've got a Gmail account, you've got a Sheets account as well. So there's only one, if you have a Google account, you can get to any and all of these Google apps or tools, whatever you want to call them. All right. So let's dig a little deeper here then, if there's no other questions. And again, if you have a question, please just unmute and ask your question. So this is the Sheets homepage. Two sections here. There's this light blue area at the top, which is how you can start a new spreadsheet. And then there's a area at the bottom to get to existing sheets that you have worked on before. We'll start at the top. Two ways to start a new spreadsheet. You can just create a blank spreadsheet, and I'll click that, and literally that's what you get. You get an empty spreadsheet that you can build whatever you want to from scratch. I'm going to click on the Sheets home. It's always up here in this upper left to go back to where we were. The other way to start is with a template. Templates are a good way to start if you're new to Google Sheets, because they are pre-formatted. It'll show you 2 or 3 here, but if you click on this template gallery right at the top, it'll take you into the full gallery. And basically what templates are is they're pre-formatted spreadsheets for different functions, like a to-do list or a budget or a calendar, lots of other things, travel planner, wedding planner, lots of different work-related things, invoices, timesheets, financial statements. So you can scroll through this later at your leisure to see which of these you might be interested in. I'll open the annual budget just as a for instance. And so that opens, and what that does is it takes the template, copies it into a sheet, and puts that into your system. So this isn't the template I'm working on. This is a copy of the template. So I can change this without affecting the template. It gives it the same name as the template, but I would probably want to first rename it. So it's unique, and I may want to have more than one annual budget. So I can set up the different ones, different versions of the template, if you will. This one starts with just a little description of what it is and how it works. And then it's got different sheets down here. These little tabs at the bottom are different sheets. So there's one where you put in all your expenses, another one where you put in all your income, and then there's one that pulls it all together into some graphs and some summary tables. So we'll learn how to build something like this from scratch, but what this does is it gives you one to start with, and you can use it as is and not have to do anything except just go in and start plugging in your numbers. What did you spend on children's activities? $50 in January, and you spent $485 here, and just start filling things in. I'm going to pull this over just a little bit. At the end, you can see it starting to total up annual totals and monthly averages and other information here. These are formulas. We'll talk about these later. These are just empty cells. When I click in it, you can see that they're empty. But that's basically how a template works. Sometimes I'll go into a template just to get some ideas and then either make mass changes to it or start from scratch and build my own, but getting ideas from someone else. Questions about templates, what they are, how you might want to use them?
Wade, I was wondering, what's the difference between Google Documents and the Sheets?
Well, if you're from the Microsoft world, Google Documents is Word and Sheets is Excel. So Word is a word processor, whereas Sheets is a spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
So if I was going to type a letter, I would use Google Docs. If I'm going to create a table like this, I would use Sheets.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm. There's no questions, and we'll move on. I'm going to click here and go back to our Sheets home again. And you'll notice that document is now down here in my documents that I've worked on before that I could continue to work on. You probably also noticed I didn't save anything. There is no save button. Everything automatically saves. It saves into something called Google Drive. That's a cloud-based storage system where everything is stored. If you want to know more about Google Drive, we have a separate class on Google Drive that explains how that works. But all the Google apps, Sheets, Slides, Docs, all automatically save their information to Google Drive. Down here are the sheets that you already have that are already out here that you've worked on before. I'm going to just briefly run through some of this. You can stop me if I go too fast, but there's several ways to filter these. You know, if you have lots and lots of these, you want to be able to manage them. If you only got 3 or 4, it's not a big deal, but if you got 100, it can be a little overwhelming. I can filter these by the ones that are owned by me. I can say the ones that are not owned by me. You can share a Google Sheet with another person or persons. So these are sheets that someone else owns, but they've shared it with me. So I can go in and open this and do whatever that person is allowing me to do. They can give me full editing access so I can enter information in here, or they could give me comment access where I can enter comments, but I can't touch the document, or view only access, which means I can just look at it or make a copy of it, but I can't enter anything in there. It's like a PDF almost. Go back here. I'll show you later how to share a document, but these are ones that have been shared with me. Or I can say owned by anyone, which means show me the ones I own, which has me in this column, and the ones that are owned by someone else. If it's owned by someone else, it's going to be shared by default. This little icon means it's been shared. And I could share a document, and here's one right here, in fact. This is owned by me, but it's been shared. That means I've shared it with other people. That way I can tell if I've shared a document or not. And the other thing you can do from here is to sort it. We've got several sort options. Last modified by me, and it actually tells me right here what option I have. I could say last opened by me. Last modified by anyone, or just sort of alphabetically by title. I'm going to turn mine back to last modified by me, which is what I normally have this, and I normally have this one, the last that are owned by me. You can set it up any way you want it. Questions about that?
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
When you share a Google Sheets or a document, it just shares that one, doesn't share everything in your Google Drive. Is that correct?
You can share a folder or an individual document. So if I had a bunch of documents I wanted to share, instead of having to share each one, I could put them in a folder and share the entire folder.
But I also think when you share something, they have to also have a Gmail account or a Google account. You just can't share it with somebody else via their email address if they don't have a Gmail account. Is that correct? Or
that's not entirely correct. You can share to someone as a visitor, and they can open up. They get a temporary Google account where they can actually access it. That account is good for, I forget if it's 7 days or 10 days.
so they have to say they want to be a visitor.
Yeah. But in most cases, you're sharing with someone else that uses Google products. You typically wouldn't be sharing a document with someone that to collaborate with that doesn't use Google.
Because I tried sharing a document and they were told this can't be shared with you because you're not a Google customer.
Yeah, that may be something new, but I just looked that up. That question came up in another class. I looked it up, and you can share something to someone. They have to create a visitor account with Google. So yeah, they got to have an account, but it's a visitor account. It's a temporary, like a 7-day account. If they just want to work on that document for a few days, and they don't want to be a real have a Google account.
Great, thank you, Wayne.
Yeah. And actually, as long as we're here, why don't let's go ahead and talk about that. So we talked a little bit of, well, we'll save it and do what I normally do it, so I don't miss the slides up. Okay, there is one other icon on the screen we haven't talked about, and that's this one. This is how you can go outside of Google. So far we've been talking about Google Drive. Everything here is in Google Drive, but you can get outside of Google. And to do that, you have to come here and click on this icon, which it's labeled Open File Picker, which is a little obtuse, but you click here. And it does default into Google Drive. And again, if you don't understand Google Drive, this will be confusing, but you can actually go into different folders and get the things in Google Drive. But what we're interested in today is getting something that's not part of Google. So whenever you see the word upload, that means bring something from your device and put it into Google Drive. So I'm going to upload, and then I'm going to select the file from your device. And so I can go down here and I can pull something off of my device, from my documents folder. And again, for those who are Microsoft people and know about OneDrive, I can pull something off of my OneDrive as well. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come into this folder and open this document, this Excel spreadsheet. You can see here, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It's got the little X there. I can open that. And you can see it's uploading it from my device into Google, and it's converted it into a Google Sheet. This is now, here's that Excel spreadsheet opened in Google. And I can edit any of this. I can make this be spring. I can type, I could. Spring of 2021, and go ahead and make changes to it. If I'm changing this is from my college class that I teach. I could change the all the data down here. So it's just a Google sheet like any other Google sheet. It just started as an Excel sheet. I got the tabs at the bottom for the different sections. Questions about that? That's how you can bring an Excel document into Google. I'm going to click on Google Home again. And here's that document down here that I just brought in. It's now a Google Sheet. That's how to import a document. If there's no questions, let's actually get into a sheet. We've talked a lot about what they are, how you move them around, how you add them. Let's get into the real meat of the matter. I've created a sheet for the class. So I'm going to go ahead and open this sheet. So to open a sheet, you just come down here and click on it. And here's the spreadsheet that I already prepared in advance. It's got some tabs at the bottom for different sheets. We're going to start here with the first sheet. And talk a little bit about the layout of the navigation of Google Sheets. Across the top are all the different commands. These are tabs that open up different groups of commands. So these are all the editing commands, all the viewing commands, insert commands, formatting commands. If you've used Excel, it's similar. The Excel ribbon, as it's called in Microsoft, is a lot bigger, has a lot more information in it. I think Sheets is less intimidating if you're new to spreadsheets. It has down here a shortcuts bar for the functions from up here that you use the most. So you don't have to come up here and click and grab something. You can just click on the shortcut bar. Anytime you see 3 dots, that means there's more. Like if you hover over it, it says more. So there's some additional ones that don't fit. The reason they don't fit is I'm not in full screen mode. If I went to full screen, I would see all those options. If I narrow my screen down, it just puts them under the triple dot, wraps them around. So we'll be going into some of these commands throughout the day. Luckily, most of the ones you use are in this shortcut bar. The way that a spreadsheet works is you work with cells. The only place you can enter information is in a cell. And as you can tell, the cell really is an intersection of a column and a row. And that's how it's named. This is C7, column C, row 7. Luckily, Google puts the cell reference up here, so you can see where you are without having to do what I just did to come down. Let me move this out of the way for now and go across. The columns are lettered, rows are numbered. When you get to Z, it picks up with AA, AB, AC, and then it keeps still using that acronym until they've run out of letters of the alphabet multiple times. That's how you get the columns in. And again, if I'm going through this, if I have questions or if I'm going too fast, just unmute and ask your question or ask me to show something again. But I'm gonna keep going, assuming you're getting this as we go. There's 4 different types of information or data you can put into a cell. You can put in numbers, text, dates, and formulas. Numbers are what the name suggests, numbers. However, one thing about spreadsheets is that the value of a cell and what you see in the spreadsheet can be different. This is what's actually in that cell, 5.238456. What I'm seeing is 5.24. So you can format how you want to see the information. So the formatted view may be different than the actual view. We'll talk about formatting later, but just to kind of quickly show you, I can change the number of decimal places by just clicking here. So I'm changing the format, I'm not changing the contents. So the point I'm trying to make is the difference between content and format. With text, what you see is what you get. It's the same. Dates, here's the date, Thursday, January the 2nd, 2020. What's actually stored is just the number, 1/2/2020. But I can have different formats in terms of how I want to see that date, how it shows up on my screen, and if I print it out, how it shows up on my printed report. If I actually want to see what's in the cell, I can look up here, which is what I normally do, but you can also double click and it will show you what's in there. And in the case of dates, it'll actually put it up on a calendar for you. So if I wanted to change the contents, I could change it in the calendar below. It'll bring it up. I could also come up here and change it up here.
I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
I've been doing a couple of Google Sheets, spreadsheets, and I've been having trouble editing indeed what's in a cell. What I see on the screen here is when you're editing, for example, this is cell B6, a number, but also up above that ribbon A, B, C, D, there is also what shows will be behind in that cell.
Yep.
When I do a spreadsheet, I don't see that stuff that's up and above that ABC row. I only can edit it in the cell itself. Is there some option that I should have or something?
You've got something done where it's hiding this information. It's it's a standard part of the cell up here, or the format of the spreadsheet.
That whole row is hidden, as you say.
So you got the shortcuts, but you don't have this row.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what that is unless somebody else does. If you want to wait to the end of class and I'll see if I can find it for you, but there's a setting somewhere that you've turned this off.
That's what I think.
I don't know what that setting is.
I'm used to Excel, and Excel, I usually always edit from that.
Yeah, it's there. You've just got it hidden somewhere because you can see it on mine. So I can edit it. I've got 2 ways, and maybe catch up with anybody that's not familiar with what he's saying. This is a formula, and a formula is like a calculator. So what I've actually done is I've said, equals to 12 plus 3, just like I would type 12 plus 3 and hit enter on my calculator, and it would display 15. This is the display. This is your calculator. It just works a little differently. You put equal first, but I can change this and make it 12 plus 37, and it changes what I'm seeing. Now, again, I can double click in the cell and edit it from down here. 12 plus 34. I usually edit it up here. To me, that makes more sense. I'm just used to doing it that way, but you can edit it from either place. You can double click in the cell, or you can come up here to this row, which apparently there's an option that turns that off, but we'll figure that out. Other questions about the contents of cells? Let's move on. We're going to take this formula and expand that and talk about different types of formulas. So that really is the heart of a spreadsheet. So I'm going to do another one. This is just like the one we looked at on the other page. So if I wanted to add 42 and 148, I would say equal. Formulas always have to start with an equal. And then I'm just like my calculator, 42 plus 148, hit the enter, and there's my answer, 190. I can look up here and make sure I typed it correct. At 42, 148, I typed it correctly. You don't do this very often in a spreadsheet where you're just adding two numbers. Typically in a spreadsheet, you're working with cells. So in this case, I want to divide the contents of B3. This is B3 right here, by 10. To do that, I'm going to say equal. I always start with equal. I can type B3, but it's easier just to click on what you want. So I'm going to click on B3, and then I'm going to do the slash, which means divide, and enter 10, and hit the enter button. And there's my answer. 190 divided by 10 is indeed 19. There's my formula, B3 divided by 10. You can also have formulas that don't have any numbers in them. They only reference cells. So if I wanted to subtract B5 from B3, I would type equal. Again, I could type B3. I'm lazy. I'm just going to touch B3 and then say minus, and then touch B5, hit enter. B3 minus B5, that's 190 minus 19 is 171. Everybody keeping up with me? So again, the power of spreadsheets is that if I change this number, these two numbers change automatically. So if I change this to be 358, both of these numbers change. So you could have one cell that makes hundreds of other cells change whenever you change that cell. We'll get into some more complicated tables in a few minutes to show a little bit more of that. Now in spreadsheets, dates are numbers, and which means you can do math with them. So if I want to know how many days are there from December 4th to December 24th, I can say equal this date minus this date, and it's 20 days. So that comes in handy sometimes, being able to do math with numbers. Now in tables, I'm going to skip to the next. So for instance, this is a typical table in a spreadsheet. They have column headers, which define the types of information that you're collecting, and then each row is a record. When we looked at the template that had the annual budget, you had a column header was each month, and so you were putting in expenses for each month and then totaling it up. There's a shortcut to create those column headers, especially if they're dates. So instead of typing Monday, then typing Tuesday, then typing Wednesday, and typing Thursday, what you can do is put in the first one. And you notice this bottom right corner has a little box here. And when I put my cursor over the box, it changes from a pointer to a plus sign. I can pull this over and it continues that pattern. It saves me having to type Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can do the same thing if it's in a different format, because it's the same thing. It's just, I'm just formatting differently. And it'll carry it across. Same thing with months. Like I have with that monthly budget. If I was creating that monthly budget spreadsheet from scratch, I would just do this and create all my column headers without having to type them in. Just a little trick for you, a little shortcut. No questions. I'm going to move forward to the next column, and we're going to talk about functions. And a function, if you can look at my slides over here, again, they start with an equal, but functions are like predefined formulas. They're for more complicated formulas, so they're predefined. And you have the equal plus the function name, in this case, sum, and then what's called the argument, but it's really the cells that you're summing up. In this case, A1 through A20. So this function says, calculate the sum of A1 through A20 and put it in this cell. Let me show you how some of those will work. So let's say I want to count how many members I have. So this is a table of club members, the name, what tier they're in, how long they've been a member, what their monthly fee is. I can see there's 4, right? But if there were 350 plus rows in this table, I couldn't just look at it and see how many there are. I'd need to have a function to count those rows for me. So I put the cursor in the cell where I want to see the answer. And I come up here, and I'm going to move this over a little bit where I can see it. Well, let's do this. It's this is the functions. And it's so I click this little down arrow, and this gives me the most commonly used functions. And here's the one that I won't count. I'm going to click count. So it goes ahead and does equals count, and then it's asking for the argument. I could type in B4 colon B8, or I can just be lazy and do this, which coloring it in does the same thing. And there's my answer. There's 4 members in my table. Let me do a couple more to kind of show you how it works. Next thing I want to know is what's the sum? How much money did I bring in this month? And I want to put it here underneath the monthly fee column. And I'm going to come back over here again and say I want to do a sum. There it is. It creates the equation for me, except for the argument. Again, I'm going to tell it what I want it to sum up. And it's 606. One more. I want to figure out what the average member pays. Come over here, select average. Select the argument range, and I've got now count, sum, and average. If anything changes, everything recalcs. Maybe this person's got a low rate, their rate gets kicked up to 150. Everything down here recalcs automatically. If I delete a row, add a new member, everything recalcs automatically. That's the magic of spreadsheets and functions and formulas.
So when you take the sum, are you clicking on the first row and click on the last, or were you clicking and holding down the left click?
Yeah, click on the first one and then hold down the mouse button, and you see how it's changing to a darker color. When I'm doing that, that's why I call it painting it in, but you're dragging down to the lowest one
Yes.
cell and then releasing.
Okay. Thank you.
But again, you could type it in if you wanted to as well. I just would rather show it than type it.
Wait, I don't see that line that you've got on the bottom. Cell contents, simple formulas, adding functions. I've got the plus and the 3 dashes, but not the rest.
Plus and the 3 dashes.
Down on the very bottom. Yeah.
Down here?
Yeah.
Oh, these are the different sheets. So when you say you don't have them, you mean there's in your spreadsheet that you don't see any of those?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, you have to put those in. Let me go back home for a second and create a blank spreadsheet. And there's only one when you start. And I'm going to start working here. But if I want to add another sheet, I click this plus, and now I've got a second sheet. And when I'm ready for a third one, I can have a third one. So that's how you add sheets. Or you have to put them in. They don't come with multiple sheets in there. Does that answer your question? That's a yes.
And then Wade, you would just have to click on that drop down under sheets and name it as you want.
Yes. So if I wanted to rename this, I can just double click it and call it Wade stuff.
Thank you.
I can name this one other stuff. Yeah, you can name them, rename them. You can move them around. You can delete them. If I want to get rid of one, I can just delete it. Now sheet 2 is gone. Okay. Okay, fine. I don't deal with that. There we go. I'm going to go back home and go back to the sheet where we were. And it was this one. And we were over here in functions. I'm going to move on to the next formatting one because we're about to run out of time. I do want to talk about formatting. Formatting is typically goes quicker because it's like formatting in a word processor or in mail. It's mostly the same thing, but there are a few things you can do in spreadsheets that you can't do in a word processor. But if I wanted to highlight this, and basically what I'm going to do is make this one look like this one. But if I want to highlight this, I would just come up here and hit the bold. But instead of having to do each one of these cells individually, I can click on the whole row and say bold that whole row. And now they're all bolded. I can do the same thing with columns. I may want to center this entire column. Click on the column, come over here and find the centering. It centers the whole column. So since it's a spreadsheet, it lets you do some things you can't do in a word processor because you can work on rows and columns. I've got a problem here. I'm chopping off part of the names. There's a couple of ways you can deal with that. If you bring your cursor up to the column and then start taking it over toward the next column, it changes to be pointing both directions. I can drag this over until I've got a wider column. This is the undo button, one of my favorite buttons. I'm going to put it back like it was. The other thing I can do, which is actually probably better, is I can come to this same place again, but double click. If I double click, Google automatically widens it to the appropriate size. That's really handy if, way down here in the spreadsheet somewhere, there's a big name like James Wade Yarborough. So if I was just moving it around, I might get it where it looks good with what I can see, but I can't see that I'm chopping off the one down there. If I double click, it widens it to make it wide enough to accommodate the widest cell in that 360 row table.
I can understand about undo, but what's the arrow next to it? Moving forward? How does it?
Oh, yeah. So if I take it back, I can go back forward again. So it undo and then it redoes.
Oh,
maybe I undo it, then I decided I liked it better the way it was to start with, so I can put it back.
Wade, in the column where you had names and you adjusted it, and you had those two options, what if you wanted it to wrap?
Okay, let's go over here because we got a similar problem over here. I can't see all of this column header. So I could, she was saying I could do this, I could widen it out so it fits, but I got all this ugly white space here. So instead, what I could do is undo that and put that back. I can do a wrap, and in Google, it's right here, text wrapping. So this says to wrap it. And what wrapping does is it makes the row taller and separates the words into separate sections here. So now I'd probably want to center that, and that looks pretty nice.
Thank you.
Other things here, I've got, these are supposed to be percents, but that's not percents. I can click the whole column and say change it to be a percent. If I want to change the number of decimal places, I can change that here. May want to round it to the nearest percent. And that's how you can change. Same thing, I want this to be dollars, so I can click format as currency. Change the formatting. So a couple of things left I want to do to my table. This is the header, the title. I want that to be bold. Maybe I want it to be a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna make it to be 14 point instead of 12, but I want it centered. And there's not any cell that's going to be exactly centered. What you can do is you can select all the cells in that table, in that row, and then you can do I have to find it here. I'm still learning all the new icons here. Well, let's go up here. If you can't figure out what the little icon is, you can come up here and click format. And what I want to do is merge the cells. So I want to merge them horizontally. So I merged those 4 cells into one big cell. And now if I center it in that one big cell, even if I change the size of some of the cells inside, this one is always centered. I'll do 2 other things real quickly, and we're going to move on to the last couple of things, and we got just enough time to finish. Typically, you want to put lines around the table parts, and that is right here, borders. So lots of different ways to do borders. I'm going to click this version, which puts all those lines there. And then I want to make this stand out a little bit, so I can go up here and use a fill color, make it be a light blue, and now I'm done formatting my table. Last 2 things I want to go over is we talked about, I showed you how to bring an Excel document into Google Sheets. Now I want to go back the other way. So I got somebody else that wants a copy of this spreadsheet, but they don't use Google, they use Excel. They want to know if I can create an Excel version for them. And I say, I can. I go up into File. I come down to Download. These are my formatting options, and luckily one of them is Microsoft Excel. I can also do it in ODS format or PDF, but I want to do an Excel spreadsheet. Click Excel. It lets me either open it or save it. I want to save it, so I'm going to take the default and say OK. I'm on a Windows machine, so with Windows, it puts it into File Explorer. On a Mac, I think it puts it into your the equivalent. I think it's called File Finder in Mac. But if I open my File Explorer, it puts it into my downloads. And here it is, GSU Sheets 210 in Excel format. So I could then put that on a thumb drive and give it to my friend. I could email it to him. However, I wanted to get him that copy, that Excel copy of my spreadsheet. Last thing, and there's a whole class on this in terms of how to share and collaborate on documents. Collaborating is very complicated. Sharing is pretty easy. So I'm going to just show you how to share here. I'm going to, there's a friend and I want them to work on this with me. We're doing this together. So I'm going to share it with them. So I'm going to click share. And the simple way to share is just to put in the person's email address. I'll pick my wife since she's right there. So if I wanted to share it with some other people, I would just add their email addresses here as well. Then I determine what I want them to be able to do. I talked about this earlier. I can let them be an editor. They can edit the document any way they want to. They can be a commenter. They can add notes, but they can't actually change the spreadsheet itself. Or they can be a viewer, which means they get a view-only copy. So if you're going to share your document with somebody just because they like it and they want to have a version of their own, which is what I do more often than anything else, I would make them a viewer and then just hit send. It would send them a link. What they would do, and I'm going to discard this instead of send it. Now I'm the friend, I just opened it. What I would do is say file, make a copy. And then they would change the name, save it themselves, and then they would have full editing rights to their copy. They can't change my copy, but they could change their copy. So that's how they could get a copy. Questions about anything we covered? I got I can take one or two quick questions. There aren't any questions because we are right at the top of the hour. Let's go ahead to closing. I know some people have other classes they're trying to get to, so I want to get it you out if you're on time, and I do have a hard stop as well. Let's go to closing. Briefly, about GetSetup, our mission is to create economic opportunity for seniors and help seniors learn tools and skills needed to stay connected and live healthy lives. I mentioned that the session was recorded. You can request a copy by sending an email to help@getsetup.io. If you're new, be sure and write this down. You'll be using this for a number of different things, but this is one of the main ones. So help@getsetup.io. Be sure and include the class name and the date attended. There'll also be a class email coming out after class. Several sections. You can recommend the class to a friend. This will send them a link either via email or Facebook to the next time it's going to be offered, so they can go straight to the registration page. There'll be some class notes, which will have some key takeaways, as well as one or more links to websites that cover the material we covered in class, as well as some additional material. So it's a way to do a little bit of independent research. You can also get a copy of the recording if you need to go back and look at something you didn't quite get the first time through. There'll be links to 3 classes. You can click on any one of these links. It will take you straight to the registration page for that class. There's a give feedback link. If you click that, it takes you to the feedback page where you can rate the session. Only 3 quick clicks are required. You can click once to rate the session itself, 1 to 5 stars. You can click to rate the guide, 1 to 5 stars, and done. We hope you'll take a few more minutes and actually write some comments and tell us why you gave us the ratings that you did. The comments are not required, but they're greatly appreciated. And then there's a section for general comments at the bottom. The last part of the spreadsheet, the email, is a link to view schedule. That will take you to our website where you can book another class. You can book by schedule. So if you know when you have some time, you got some time Friday, you're looking for classes, just click Friday. It'll take you through the classes available. You can register for anything that you'd like to register for. You can also register by class category by clicking on classes. And it will take you to our classes page. You can scroll through our full roster, but there's over 200 classes. That's a little intimidating. So we've broken them into categories. So if you're interested in health and wellness classes, they're here. If you're looking for more tech classes, they're over here. If you know what you're looking for, the best thing to do is click the search icon and search by keyword. There's a class about Google Drive. So if you're interested in Google Drive, you can type Google Drive. And here's Google Drive Basics. That's the class. So you can click this. It'll take you to the Google Drive class, and you can go ahead and sign up for that class. All right, we are at the top of the hour, so I do want to thank you all for attending. Hope you learned some things about Google Sheets, and we'll give it a try. It's free. You may as well try it. Hope I see you again in another class really soon. Have a great day, and thanks for attending.
Thanks, Wade.
Thank
Very
you.
informative.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.